What's up, guys? Welcome to episode number 2 of the Quarantine on the Block. Joe here with Igor on the phone. NBA season's pretty much wrapped up at this point. We've heard some talk today that Silver is going to tell the owners that at this point there's not really much they can do in terms of getting the season back with all the stuff that's going on with COVID. So we're going to kind of wrap up our version of the awards today, and we're going to start off with MVP. And like I was saying earlier, Igor, I really want to hear who you have because I know that you're a big LeBron guy, and I want to see where you have him in this race. So why don't you give me your top 3 in order, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I mean, as much as I believe that LeBron, especially at his age, is having a phenomenal season, the Lakers are having probably a more impressive season than I think most would have thought in the regular season because again a lot of the roster from last year was either traded away or let go. So I think LeBron is right up there. I would have to put LeBron as number 2, simply for the fact that the Bucks in the East and Giannis is doing an extraordinary job there. He's just been completely dominant on both ends of the floor. His 3-point shooting is getting slightly better, which has really been the biggest issue in his game. But I would say that he would have to be, a back-to-back winner. Again, he's still showing growth. He's still, a reasonably young guy. It'll be an interesting situation if he does get the free agency what happens there if the Bucks can't win a championship or continue to fall short in the playoffs, like they did to the Raptors last year. And third, I would say it would have to be Luka Doncic. He's done a great job with that Dallas team. They've been a solid, I wouldn't say they're a contender in the West, but they're a lot better than people thought they were going to be. So I would say that he's had a ton of progression as well. So I would put him third. And then James Harden is also probably in the conversation, but I would say that those 3 would be it would be Giannis, it would go, and then it would be LeBron, and then it would go Luka would be my top 3.
Okay, so you have LeBron at 2.
I do.
Going into the season, we were talking about this. I think I had the Lakers finishing first, and you had them finishing second or third. You think they had that stronger season. Obviously, I was a little bit impressed with how they came out and really tried to get that number 1 seed. But I do think that Giannis, he's only playing, I think, 32 minutes a game, something really limited. And he's put up the same numbers and inflated most of his stats, too. We've seen him, like you said, last year in the playoffs with the Raptors, what he did on both sides of the floor. He's a defensive beast, too. And really, the only guy that could stop him was Kawhi last year in the playoffs. But this year, nobody's been able to stop him or the Bucks. Bucks been the best team in the league by far. You know what I mean? The Lakers came on late, and I know that they won that last game, so they split the season series. But from start to finish, I do think that the Bucks were the best team, and Giannis was the best player. So he's my back-to-back MVP. LeBron and Doncic was kind of, I guess, an interesting debate too. Like you said, most people didn't have Dallas in the playoff picture, and if some did, they had them, 7 to 8. I want to say that they were in 6 at the time when the season pretty much finished, but for a big part of the season, they were kind of dealing with Porzingis coming in and out of the lineup. He had, he rested sometimes, and Doncic rolled his ankle the first time pretty bad around Christmas time, I remember, and he didn't play when they came here, so they did miss one of their guys for most of the season, and then, with the Canadian going down towards Achilles, Dwight Powell, that was obviously another big piece of their team. Maybe their third best player went down after, maybe Tim Hardaway and him, but you get my point. So I'm going to put Doncic actually in third. I'm going to go with your boy LeBron in second, and that pretty much being not just because of the stats that he put up, but also with the Lakers being as good of a team as they were this season. I do want to reward that. And then, creeping up in fourth, James Harden started off incredible. Really revolutionized the step back as we've seen for a while. And then just the thing with me with the Rockets was after they made that trade, they looked good for a while. They beat the Lakers, I remember the first game. But after that, they kind of tailed off and Harden looked a little bit fatigued too. And Westbrook was really the better player for the second half of the season, I guess, or more so like the last third of the season. I guess that wraps up MVP for me. So I put Giannis, LeBron, and Doncic, and then Harden's kind of creeping up there in fourth. Which award do you want to do next?
I guess we're pretty much in agreement with the top 3, which is kind of not our usual thing, but I guess we'll take it. Let's go with Rookie of the Year. I think that one's kind of cut and dry a little bit unless you believe that Zion's done enough. I personally don't think that, considering the amount of games that he missed, and obviously the season was obviously cut short, you'd have to give it to John Morant. I mean, the Grizzlies being in the position that they're in, and he's had a heck of a rookie season. I don't think you could give it to anybody else. So he's definitely number one for me without a doubt. And again, Zion's been impressive and a hell of an impact, but again, a little too little, too late. And then with the season being cut, just not enough time whatsoever. So I would have to give it to Morant.
So you have Morant and Zion. Anybody in third? Anybody worth mentioning?
I mean, if I'm looking at like a third guy there. I mean, I've actually I'm obviously biased. I think Terrence Davis has had a hell of a situation there, but obviously I don't think he'd be top three. I don't think there's anybody that I would really consider to be in that. I don't know who would the third. There's not really anyone that really comes to mind which would be a solid third option. I think it's a 2-horse race. I don't really see anyone that really stood out to me as a solid third option for Rookie of the Year this year. I think it's either been Zion or Morant. Do you have anybody in mind?
Yeah, okay, so I guess I'll just go through the rankings. I have Ja first, and that's only because he played the most games, obviously. He was incredible, especially for a rookie point guard. Turnovers are always an issue, and also defense, and he did kind of struggle with both of those. But we know the kid's going to be a future star. Obviously, to Zion, I think he's going to be the best player of the draft. Most of us do. I think that you do as well. In third is kind of tough. I wrote down a few guys that I'm not sure really who the clear-cut guy is. I don't think any of these guys are really future stars. If you're looking for a future star, the possibility, I think Michael Porter Jr., who's going into his second year but didn't play last year with the back issues. Did you like what you saw from him?
Yeah, I mean, he's been very limited because Denver's so, because of their rotation issues, he's been basically in and out with depending on if I think Jamal Murray was injured and then Millsap, and then they had a couple other injuries with their rotation. He just hasn't had the amount of game time, but he's been impressive when called upon. But considering his lack of minutes for the majority of the year, I think that'd be a tough ask because I think he'd be right on that same cusp as Terrence Davis, where he's phenomenal one game, but then might not be seen for another three. So it's a tough one there. So I think he's going to have talent. I think he's going to be a solid player, but based on the year he's had so far, I wouldn't put him in the same stratosphere as the other two.
Yeah, and then I guess like the next tier of guys, Terrence Davis has to get a shout out. He's been really solid, stepping in, hit some big shots for the Raptors this year. And especially when, Fred or Kyle's been hurt at this point in the season, which both of them definitely missed their share of games. He stepped up in that backup point guard role and, really flourished for a rookie. It was really good to see Raptors development once again find another gem. But other guys that are kind of creeping up there, Atlanta's pair, Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, both guys had their times to shine. I don't think either guy's really going to be a star, but hopefully they can be maybe like an OG. They can kind of hope for that, like a 3D kind of guy with both guys are pretty athletic. Kobe White in Chicago, another guy that had some spurts, but was kind of hit or miss for most of the season too. Rui Hachimura in Washington, I know that he got kneed in the groin, we'll say that, and he did miss some time, but he looked pretty good. And then the other guy, last two guys here, Darius Garland of Cleveland, kind of struggled, and that's what I was saying about point guards that are rookies. It is very tough, and Cleveland's a mess. And PJ Washington of Charlotte, really, he was their best 3-and-D guy on that team. So the rookie class decent, but 2 stars really coming out of it, and I think that everybody else kind of in a different tier. Next, you want to go coach of the year or defensive player?
We can go defensive player of the year.
All right, let's go. You're up.
So me, I think personally, Gobert's won it quite a lot recently. I would say that he probably, based off a lot of the stats, especially towards the latter part of the year, especially when Mike Conley went down, the Jazz kind of turned it around a little bit. He's definitely going to be in heavy consideration. I would like to see somebody else win the award. I would probably give it to Anthony Davis this time around. I think his impact on D is definitely massive, and I would definitely think that he has the capabilities to win that award. So I would say in my rankings, I would probably go Anthony Davis 1, Gobert 2, and then I really like what I've seen from Bam. I think Bam's been a hell of a player this year for Miami. His defense and his rebounding has been tremendous. I would definitely put him in that conversation as well. So those 3 would be my top 3. I think most people probably think that Gobert will probably win it, but I think that Anthony Davis has a legit opportunity at it. So I'm going to say that I want to see somebody else take it this year, and I'm going to say that they should give it to Anthony Davis.
I agree for two reasons. With Rudy Gobert, there was the obvious of him crying and bickering when he did make the All Star game last season. Grown men don't cry, first of all. But secondly, the COVID thing, right? Like, let's not forget about that. I know he's apologized and everything since, but we can't forget, what's kind of happened, right? Like, he's got to take some of that blame. Now, I don't know if he's going to lose the Defensive Player of the Year award over that, but in this case, I'm kind of willing to give it to someone else. That being said, I'm gonna go with Giannis for for Defensive Player of the Year and for MVP because I saw this stat. Guys on offense are shooting 9.7. I wrote down the number 9.7% less than against any other defender. And like I said, we saw that last year firsthand against the Raptors. The guy's a beast. I think him and Anthony Davis, like you brought up, those are two guys in terms of body, skill. Like they're in a league of their own. I know we've talked about other guys like Karl-Anthony Towns and Embiid and that kind of stuff. There are some other guys, even Porzingis before he got hurt. But those two guys, in terms of athleticism and on both sides of the floor, those guys are 1A and 1B. But Giannis, like I said, I think that the ability also to cover different positions, he can cover guys on the perimeter, on a pick and roll, and a switch, and obviously defensive rim just as good as anybody else. So I'm going to go Giannis, AD, and then Gobert in third due to performance and some other things.
Yeah, I think I would have Giannis at 4. I mean, he's definitely been very capable on that end as well. But again, I'm also a guy that kind of doesn't like guys hogging all the awards. So I mean, if he wins MVP, at least give out Defensive Player of the Year to somebody else.
No, we're not giving up anything here. I know that you're kind of mad that he's stealing the MVP from your boy LeBron, but we got to give credit where credit's due. And he's taking 2 awards this season. Because I think last year you probably should have won it too. Okay, let's go to Coach of the Year, second last award. Name your top 3. Let's hear it.
So this is a little bit interesting because I mean, if you base it off of team records, obviously you're gonna Coach Budenholzer, and he definitely has like the best team. But I mean, that was also one of they were first last year as well. So I wouldn't give it to him. I think you got to give it to guys that have done a solid job with surprise situations. And as much as I don't want to be a homer about it, but considering what was lost by the defending champions last year, especially being Kawhi Leonard, I think Nick Nurse done a pretty goddamn good job. And again, I haven't been the biggest Nick Nurse guy. I think sometimes he runs his rotations a little bit out too much, and he makes some mistakes every once in a while. But he's done a hell of a job with a team that not a lot of people thought were going to be even in the conversation, and they're still pretty solid. Another guy that I think has done a really good job has been Spoelstra in Miami. I think they're a team that not many people thought were going to do well. They thought maybe they would do something, but not to the levels that they came into. So I think those 2 guys would be my top 2, and then I'd have Coach Bud at number 3. So I'm gonna say that I'm gonna want to give it to Nick Nurse. Maybe it's a little homer in me, but I would think it should be either him or Spoelstra, in my opinion. But again, I think that maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think Nurse has done a hell of a job with, considering that they had a better record on a team that Kawhi's not even on, which is pretty remarkable considering they didn't add any major pieces.
Yeah, I don't think that really being a homer is going to play much of a role in this because I think that most people that are going to have any vote for the award are probably going to put him first, second, or third, right? Rounding out my top 5 in no specific order, I did have Coach Bud in there. And like you said, it's tough because even though they were the best team last year, they got even better statistically in terms of winning percentage, right? Like they were almost on Golden State Warriors' historic pace. At one point until really that, I think it was a 2 or 3 game stretch. And they lost, I think it was it Clippers, Boston, and Lakers. I know they lost at least 2 of those 3 games. But Bud has been an innovator. We've seen that with Atlanta from one of our first seasons doing the show, how good they were back then. I wanted to throw in Frank Vogel too with the Lakers because you want to speak about surprises, and we all knew the Lakers were going to be good, but I don't think anybody, including yourself, or a LeBron fan, didn't think that they'd be this good and this fast. So I do want to give him credit. We've seen him do some stuff with the Pacers and Paul George and Hibbert back in the day, Lance Stevenson and all the guys they had there. But I think that the job that he's done, the fact that LeBron's kind of been rejuvenated playing with Davis, and then also having a coach that he can kind of work with has to get a shout out to. Spoelstra, And then Taylor Jenkins in Memphis. I know that Memphis was in the playoff spot when the season ended. I'm not sure they're going to hold on because I think that New Orleans had like the easiest schedule to finish out the season, their last 18 or 20 games. And with Zion back, it was going to be kind of tough because I think that Memphis did have one of the hardest schedules going forward. But a lot of people didn't think that they were going to be that great either. Jaren Jackson's been hurt seemingly like every week. If you have him in fantasy, I kind of feel bad for you. But Nick Nurse, that's the guy for me that's going to take the award this year, like you said. What I really like about Nurse is he's not scared to try things. And we've talked about this before with Dwayne Casey when he was coach of the Raptors. It was the same stuff over and over and over again. And it's really good to see, like a polar opposite as a Raptors fan, seeing guys that, you knew what they were going to do every time, especially at the end of the game. It was give the ball to DeMar and get out of the way kind of thing, where if you have like a top 3 player in the league, like LeBron or Kobe or any of these all-time guys, give them the ball, you don't need to be any kind of coach. But when you don't have those elite guys, you need to get creative. And I think that he did a lot of stuff on the defensive end, like we saw that box and one, just the guts to try stuff. And I think that he kind of gets the accolade this season. So he's going to get my coach of the year. And then last, we have sixth man, if you want to kick that one off.
So sixth man of the year, I think it's been a Lou Williams award the last few years. I do want to touch on one point before I start.
Sure.
I think, if the special correspondent was on the show, he'd say that you can't put Frank Vogel in there because, LeBron's the star player, the coach, and the general manager. But at the end of the day, we'll digress from that point because the special correspondent isn't on there. So yeah, we have sixth man and we have most improved player to go. So in terms of the sixth man, I'm going to go a little bit different this year. I think Lou Williams is still a huge candidate for it. But I've been really, really impressed with Montrezl Harrell. I think Montrezl Harrell has been, again, an engine, a spark for the Clippers on that second unit. I think, he could be easily a starter for them because I think he's a better player than Zubac and a lot of guys that they've had in the starting lineup at different positions. But I think I'm going to go with Harrell as the sixth man this year, just to, again, give it a little bit of a different feel. I think Lou Williams has still been a significant player for the Clippers and one of the better players around the league. Another guy that I thought was doing a good job, and I don't know if he would still be in consideration, was depending on if you thought he was a sixth man or a starter when Kyrie was playing. I thought Spencer Dinwiddie was doing a heck of a good job for the Nets, but I think it'll be a Clippers award. And it'll either go to Harrell or to Lou Williams. And I'm going to say that Harrell's improvement and what he brings to that second unit will just eke out Lou Williams this time around. And I'm going to give it to Montrezl Harrell this time around.
Yeah, but between, like you're saying, the Lou Williams award, between him and Jamal Crawford, it seems like every year one of those guys takes it home. And you can't really, be criticized for giving it to either of those guys. Again, I think both guys were between, like 18 and 21, and it didn't hurt them the fact that either Paul George or Kawhi seemed like one of them was out every game, so those points could be distributed to either one of those guys. That being said, I just wanted to touch on with Trez. I don't think that you could really start him at least in a playoff series. I think he would best be suited to come off the bench because if you're going against someone like the Lakers, which was probably a collision course to be the West Final between Davis, McGee, Howard, LeBron, like you need a lot of size there, right? And that's why I think Zubac kind of helped the Clippers because he's, I think he's the only 7-footer they have on the roster, right? And Trez is like 6'8", and that might even be generous. But that being said, Trez I really liked. I put him at number 2. I have Lou at 3, even though he was incredible. What are you going to do? But I wanted to give some shine to Trez. And then at first, I wanted to give it this year to Dennis Schroeder because he was in Atlanta a few years ago, and pretty much since he came in the league, he came off the bench there first, and then he ended up starting. And then after that, it seemed like he was kind of exiled there, and that was even really before they got Trae Young. It seemed like they were kind of fed up by his off-court antics, and most people were anyways. But he's really kind of reinvented himself in OKC, and OKC, in terms of a team, was also not a bit, they were a huge surprise. So between their record and then also his efficiency and filling in where kind of Russ left off, just in terms of like helping a bit of the scoring and efficient scoring, like I said. He even played a little bit better on defense, which was non-existent every year prior in his career. So yeah, I just want to give it to OKC because I think that they were I think that Vegas probably had them around like 30 to 33 wins, and I'm pretty sure their record when the season finished was like 42 and like 23 or something crazy like that. So I just wanted to kind of recognize Schroeder there. But like you said, even Dinwiddie, he had a great season, but between the Kyrie BS that was going on there, I don't think he would have played enough games to qualify as a six man. But he was another guy that had a great efficient season and on both sides of the floor as well. Defense was also there. Last award, we'll go most improved. You want to start off?
Yeah. So last year it was Pascal that won it last year and deservingly so. And you know what? He at the end of the day still improved quite well this year. He's definitely gone to another level with Kawhi gone, but I'm gonna say that I've been thoroughly impressed in terms of most improved. I'd have to give it to Bam Adebayo out of Miami. I think he's improved significantly all over the floor. Became an all-star this year. I think he was only averaging about 9 points last year. He's again been one of the big reasons why Miami's been as good as they have been, even obviously with the addition of Jimmy Butler. He's been significantly better, and I think I would give him the award this year in terms of most improved. I still think guys like Pascal and Fred. I think Fred's been much better this year. He's improved at leaps and bounds at times as well, carrying on from what he did in the playoffs. But another guy let's say Brandon Ingram is a guy that's definitely improved, but is that more because he's getting more shots in New Orleans? That's tough to say what that situation would be. So I'm gonna give it to Bam. I think he's had the biggest spurts, and he's gone to a significantly higher level. So I'm gonna give it to him this year.
Okay, so Bam, and then who do you have just for a second?
So Bam, I would still say that Pascal would be in the conversation because he did legitimately increase both his points per game, and again, he ended up being a guy that was, he improved significantly last year. Another guy that wasn't an all-star last year, and in my opinion should have been an all-star last year. I would definitely put Pascal in the conversation, and then I would put Brandon Ingram in there as my top three in terms of improvements to significant levels, because all three guys were not all-stars last year, and we're all-stars this year.
Okay, fair enough. I like Bam. Bam was incredible. Probably better on the defensive end, but on both sides, really keeping the heat intact, especially with Jimmy Butler, the addition, and a lot of people didn't know how that was going to go just based on where he's been before. But Bam really kept that together. I'm going to put him in second. I'm going to go kind of in a weird order here, but since we just finished off with Bam, second, I think he even averaged 5 assists. He kind of played at the top of the key and got the offense going, shared the ball. It was a nice offense to watch. In second, he was second. In third, I wanted to give it to Sabonis. I thought that.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I forgot about Sabonis as well. He's had a pretty good year as well. Another guy that was an all-star again.
Yeah, I wanted to give Sabonis some recognition there because we know, and like you talked about this with, I believe it was Ingram, when you talked about guys that are getting, a focus of the offense. But that being said, a lot of guys, when you get that offense, you're not necessarily efficient. And we saw that with a few guys, and even Pascal, who I think I had fourth or fifth here. Pascal started the season really well, and then once I feel like teams kind of did their homework on him, his numbers went down, and against some of the upper echelon teams in the league, he struggled a little bit. Still best player on the second best team in the East, so I don't want to put any water on his fire or anything like that, but he was really good. But I think he still needs to take that next step. And for a guy that was drafted 24th overall in the draft, there's a few guys that have kind of taken on that jump. The only guy I can think of off the top of my head is Jimmy Butler. But when you do get into that, like I said, from most improved player of the year to then being the focal point of the offense and replacing Kawhi, essentially, it is tough. But he's done a pretty admirable job. Winning the award and talking about taking on that burden, Brandon Ingram. I want to give him credit because I was a guy that kind of slept on him too, and I think he's in his third year now. So this is usually where you see the jumping guys like that. But he looks, I don't want to say a superstar, but he looks like a legit focal point of an offense. He can shoot the three. That was a big problem for him coming out of the draft. Everybody compared him to Durant, but I think that was a bunch of hype because they fell in love with the two body types. But he's very crafty. He can get to the rim. He can shoot the mid-range. He can shoot the three. Got a little bit more creative handling the ball and also passing it. And he was really like the only real offense they had when Holiday was hurt for a bit of the season, Drew. So when they had all those guys in the Lakers trade that were kind of lingering around, especially Lonzo, these aren't guys that can really score the ball. And as we saw sometimes with the Raptors when they went through a bunch of their injuries when Pascal, Mark, Norm went out, it got ugly. And it was kind of refreshing to see Ingram, a guy who, Lakers fans and a lot of people kind of written off, prove people wrong. So I have him winning the award, Bam in second, Sabonis in third, Pascal in fourth, and then another guy that's pretty much a superstar, but I want to give him some credit too, Brad Beal. You want to say anything about him because like the season that he had, even though Wall was out, like one of the best scoring seasons we've seen, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a guy that, he had a multiple 50-point games at times too. Again, for Beal, like, it's just one of those situations where, and again, I mean, Ingram, your selection of Ingram is a solid one too. It's just one of those things where, again, somebody's got to score too, right? I mean, I think Brandon Ingram is in a situation where, yes, now that Zion's back, it's maybe a little bit different, but he's definitely got more of opportunities to be a legit weapon than he did on the Lakers. So I think that helped him a little bit. But, I mean, in terms of Bradley, like, he's been a phenomenal player. And realistically, I think Washington should really be building around him. There's always been significant rumors that he's going to get traded. I mean, that John Wall contract is pretty much not movable. But, like, he's a significant star. He can be a guy that can be a top-notch player in the league. And, yeah, with him running the show for almost an entire year, you kind of saw that where he's not in Wall's shadow whatsoever, and he's been a significantly solid player, a guy that's probably really underrated. Can you give him most improved player? I don't know. He's been a guy that everyone thinks is a legitimate top-notch player for a long time.
Yeah.
Did he improve that significantly? I mean, you could argue that probably not as much as some of these other guys, but still a solid player, without question.
Yeah. No, that's what I was gonna say. Like he's not a guy that would win the award, but same with MVP. If you're filling out a ballot, like even back in the day, guys used to vote for DeMar, maybe top 10 or whatever it was in an MVP race. The guy's never gonna win it, but you still got to throw some votes there. And I was just impressed more so with Beal because like another guy I kind of compare him with is Devin Booker. And like, if you had, let's say you're a Raptors fan, if you could only take one of those guys, who would you take, Devin Booker or Brad Beal?
I personally would take Bradley Beal. I think he's I think Devin Booker's the better shooter, but I would say that Bradley's probably the better overall player in my opinion. I just like the way that Bradley plays, and his mentality more than I do with Devin. I think I've also seen Bradley succeed quite a bit, and I still haven't seen the Suns do anything with Booker. And it's been a while. At least Bradley. The Wizards had some rough years, but they've also had some significantly pretty solid years, and which he's been a part of, right? So I think as a winner and like what I would want for the Raptors, I would think that Bradley would be the better fit. But I mean, you can't really go wrong with Booker in terms of his shooting. I think he's a phenomenal shooter. But overall, I'd probably take Bill.
All right. Any last thoughts then for this? I'm going to throw out a different kind of award for you.
No, I mean that's basically. Hopefully somehow the season still gets played and we can get back to watching some basketball sooner rather than later. I think both me and you think that's not going to happen, but it would be great if they could find some kind of way. I mean, we're relying on hearing about horse tournaments and watching these guys play 2K and. It's just a little bit weird, but it is what it is. Because I mean, at this point of the year, we'd be talking about like nearing the playoffs and things like that, and yeah, so weird, just the world we live in.
All right. Lastly, I just went through a bit of the roster, so if you can't think of them, but anybody off the top of your head, I will give you some time. But I wanted to come up with like the most disappointing players of the season, even just one. Any guys that like really fell off a cliff this season? Anybody off the top of your head who you can think of that really like.
Most disappointing player this season. I mean, I'm still disappointed on I don't think that move by Kyrie to the Nets is going to work out long term. His injury history, he seems way too fragile. It's just that to me has been a situation where even when Durant comes back, I don't see that working out in in their benefit whatsoever. I think Mike Conley, Utah, has been a bit of a bust. That's not working out too well. I think they end up playing better without him for the majority of the time. Yeah, I think those two are the ones that really come to mind are on guys that have had changes of scenery and have just not really done anywhere of a decent job. Like I think the Nets are still better when Kyrie doesn't play. Yeah, I think those two are significant problems for sure.
Guys that I thought of, one of them I had on my fantasy team, which we're not sure was going to happen with that either. I think number one on the list for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gary Harris on Denver Nuggets. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the thing with guys like Gary Harris is that, I mean, it's not really his team, right? Like where would you rank that guy on the depth chart of the Denver Nuggets? You would look at that guy as what, maybe the third, fourth best player at best. He's not better than Jokic. He's not better than Jamal Murray. Like you probably put him in that third or fourth range, and guys like that are. I mean, it really depends on what the situation is. Is he getting enough usage? Is he getting? Does he need more of the ball in his hand?
Yeah, but the other thing I was gonna say is if you're paying him like he got, I don't remember. I want to say it's 80 million, but I want to say it's at least 65 that he got in a contract. The guy was averaging like 11 points. And he wasn't even taking up the shots. Now, I know, and I've said this for the past few seasons since I announced Denver as it's coming up, they were one of the deepest teams. That's why they had to get rid of Malik Beasley and Hernan Gomez. They do have a lot of guys. That being said, you were statistically one of the best shooters in the league. And I know that he had a little bit of injury problems that I believe was last year and a bit of this year. But the guy just looks like he's almost forgot how to play the game to a certain extent. It's been ugly. Other guys I had on the list, for different circumstances, this one, Lauri Markkanen. I don't know where to begin with him. I saw him, I believe this was his third season. Yeah, pretty sure. Rookie year, made the all-rookie team look like a stud. Look like possibly another Porzingis, minus the defensive stuff, but on offense, like another Porzingis. His shooting was terrible. Chicago was a mess. He was pretty healthy, so that's why I'm not really sure. You have some injury problems, maybe you get a bit of a write-off. That wasn't the case. He looked terrible. I hope he bounces back. Two other guys that I have here, one of them older, one of them younger. Reggie Jackson, the older guy, he looks like he's going to be out of the league once his contract is at the end of this season. And if he is in the league, he's going to be second or third point guard on a team. Kind of what happened to like Isaiah Thomas. Guys had some injuries, but he just looks really bad. Can't shoot, never really could. His best years were really in OKC as their sixth man way back in the day. And then the other guy that I had here, and it's really a sad story just because he kind of reminds me of actually his backup point guard in New York who became the starter. Dennis Smith Jr. went like 6th overall to Dallas a few years ago.
Yeah, he's been pretty bad for the Knicks.
Very bad, like unplayable.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Markkanen thing, to go back to your point, is I think the coaching's been awful. Like, I don't know. I mean, Zach LaVine still succeeded pretty well, but like they're just a mess out there in Chicago for the most part. Like, yeah, I would agree with you that Markkanen's definitely been a disappointment because he did have a great start as a rookie, and he hasn't really done a ton since. But I think a lot of it has to do with the coaching situation, and that looks like a mess. But you're absolutely right about Dennis Smith Jr. He's been lost on the Knicks, been a big disappointment. And to be honest with you, actually, if I was going to be in a situation about disappointment, I think our Canadian boy RJ Barrett's been a disappointment as well.
You think so?
I think so. I think a lot was expected of him on where he got picked and looking at where the selection was. And I think his shooting's been really bad. He's definitely had some games where he's completely non-existent. And I mean, the New York media is not going to deal with that for too long. I mean, I would say they probably give him a couple years, but he's definitely got to motor through a little bit because, like, look at all the rookies that we talked about. He wasn't even discussed. He wasn't even in the conversation.
Yep.
That's pretty bad.
And you want to talk about disappointing guys who found their way to the Knicks. First of all, with the thing with Barrett, was that he is a rookie, and although the shooting numbers, especially at the free throw line, like his free throw numbers scared me. His free throw form scared me. It wasn't quite Ben Simmons-esque, but for a guy I know he's 6'7", but he's a 1 or a 2 guard, really a 2 guard. That's kind of frightening when you're at the free throw line and you don't even look comfortable shooting. I think he was at like 50%, 55%, which is just a
yeah, exactly. That's god awful.
Other guys that the Knicks accumulated that have all been disappointing. Frank Ntilikina, we want to talk about that. Now, I don't know if this is really just the guy that he was because the Knicks selected him at I think he actually went right after Dennis Smith in the draft, maybe like 8. Defensive guy, really good on that end, but on offense still looks kind of lost, can't shoot very well, doesn't really get to the rim that great either. And then Alfred Payton, who might have been the best out of all those guys. And to be honest, all of these guys, Ntilikina, RJ, Alfred Payton, and Dennis Smith,